Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Custom. So today we're going to start this whole work in progress series of putting this cable kit together for my friend this year. Now, I did a kit review on this a while back. Check that out in the description to give you guys a whole idea of everything that's going on with this. But right now, we're going to start the whole work in progress series as I know a lot of people wanted to see me put this together. So right now, at this point in time, we have to design the base. We were talking a lot over the year about like what could we do with the base. He's like, can we just do like a generic block, black block? Could we do this? Could we do that? Because he figured if he was to hire the sculptor to do a base, that simple base like an oval base, and then print it and mold it, it would be way too much money. So he just says, can we do something on our end? I said, yeah, it's really simple. It's not that hard. So after talking and everything, we came up with a lot of ideas, but then he contacted Warren from Warren and Resin. So they're going to do some kind of a metal base. I'm not really sure and I'm not involved with it. I'm putting the kit together, so this way, whatever the base is done, it should work out pretty cool because I think he's going to be doing something with another statue with a metal base. So they're going to kind of like interchange or kind of be together. And he also says too, he's sick of all the Sentinel bases, and I agree with him. It's like, I know X-Men and Sentinels go hand in hand, but not every single X-Men statue has to have a Sentinel base. Plus, you know, sometimes these bases are getting so elaborate and so big, it's like, are we worried about the figure or are we worried about the base? Because I like museum poses or something like this where it's kind of a little bit of an action pose, but it's not really like crazy and it's not like, you know, all based out, as you can say. I don't know, it's kind of just my preference, but I know we're all different, so that's the fun thing about the hobby. But anyway, at this point in time, they needed me to come up with some sizes. So I said, all right, let me get a piece of cardboard and we'll put them together. But he's just kind of standing there. He's not put together, he's not glued, nothing. He just stands very well and he's very well keyed. So I said we got 3 sizes. So I said, all right, here we go. We got a 12.5 by 15 where it's a smaller base, but this gun and this can kind of hover without of the block. Then I said, all right, we could go about a 15 by 15 where this gun and this can are within the block. So he's like, all right. And then we got an 18 by 15, which is kind of way bigger, where everything is hovered within the block, but we have a lot of empty space here. You can add something down the line if you wanted to, but I think he's going to go with about the 15 by 15 because I think that'll work out pretty good. So I said, now we got an issue. If Warren's working on the base over the next couple months, and then I'm working on this, I can't really put all this legs and stuff together, because if I was to put all this stuff together, like say on the floor or on my kitchen table, and then I get the base and I put him on the base, one foot's kind of like hovering above the other. It's like, you know, nothing's lined up. So I need to have the base. So I said, all right, what if Warren starts working on the base, and before he does like whatever, you know, whatever before he needs to do any polishing or whatever they're doing for their base, I can actually start, you know, priming up him. I can add the magnets. I can start pinning certain areas. I could get all the other pieces and set everything up but not do anything down here. So I said, once Warren gets the base to the point before he has to do any polishing or whatever they're doing, what I could do is I can have everything ready. Warren could come over and drop off the base. I can set up the legs on the base where it needs to go. I can work on the base where we're going to add a, you know, because I want to add a peg here so it goes in and out of the base. So Warren can like Dremel a hole in that area. Then we can add Aves in my metal rod and all that stuff. So it's going to kind of work out. I think it'll play out fine within over the summer and fall. But like I said, at least I can do a lot of the prep work now. I don't want to do any paint work until like everything is set within the base though, because I don't like to take too many extra steps. Then all of a sudden something happens, or maybe they scrap the idea of that base and they change it to something else. So we got to kind of be in sync with everything. But at least I do a lot of the prep work. So with that being said, sorry for the long-winded first part of the video. The next steps is, what we'll probably do is we'll get in the garage, we'll start planning out magnets, pinning, and we'll start getting everything prepped up. I might have to order some new magnets. I think a lot of the ones I have might be too small for some areas, so we'll see what goes on. But that's where we're at. I think it's going to be a fun project, and I think once we take care of this for him this year and it's on the shelf, it's going to be like a grail of grails for him. So there we are. So next step is, like I said, we'll get in the garage and we'll start plugging away. Okay guys, I am ready to start working on the cable, except I don't have magnets that I thought I had. So I have my surplus of magnets in here. You can see I got all different types of sizes I was using for a lot of other projects. Over in these bags in here are a lot of my smaller magnets. You can kind of see how they all are. So what I'll probably be doing is, I got these magnets here that work, that I've been using for a lot of projects. I'm probably going to use it for the hands. So these magnets can go in here no problem. I think that'll work out pretty good. So that's set for there. But looking at the size of these arms here, the block is about 25 millimeters. So when you go on eBay, everything is in millimeters. So if you have yourself a millimeter ruler, you can actually measure out stuff really well. And so I'm probably gonna have to order something either 15 or 20, maybe even in 19 or 17. They have lots of different sizes. They have squares, they got circles, they got thicks, they got thins. So you just have to go on eBay and just pretty much search. So we're going to get a magnet here, we're going to get a magnet here, and then these pieces will connect going this way. So we're pretty good at that. Now, as far as like I've always said in the past with a lot of my videos, I always get a little bit concerned with the keys being so deep. I mean, look how deep that key is, right? So if you were to put a magnet in here, magnet here, and you got everything going north and south, the problem is when you start putting magnets going this direction versus that direction, are they going to connect? Are they going to kind of wobble up? So what I'm probably going to do is maybe what I'll do is I'll add a piece of metal in here, and then what I'll do is I'll take a test after I do these two magnets and see if putting a magnet in the head works or if it pops out. You know, you got to be kind of careful with because you know you got a hole here, hole here, hole here, to here and here. And then if you start throwing magnets all over the place, you got, you know, up and down, left and right, you know, you got things going all over. So you got to make sure everything is working pretty good. I was also debating with the idea, maybe what I might do is, since these keys are so deep, maybe I might cut them. Maybe I might not go as deep. So this way I don't have to worry about, you know, anything here. Because you really don't need these keys this deep. I mean, if you look at, if I'm putting my fingers there, we're almost like touching. So I don't know. I might have to see once I order the magnets to kind of play with some stuff, see what's going on. But I mean, the key is great. It's nice and deep, but we really don't need something that deep, especially if I put some strong magnets. But anyway, I'm going to get an order on my magnets pretty soon. I got a couple other projects. As far as ordering magnets on eBay from China, you get about maybe 2 to 3 weeks depending on the package. The more magnets you are, the bigger the box, the slower it takes. So I'm not going to try to order too many, but I need some big ones for some projects. So we'll get that on order, we'll come back, and we'll start putting in all the magnets. Okay guys, so pretty much what I was thinking was going to happen, happened. So the magnets are in there, I forget which way they're going, I've been testing it and everything. If you put this magnet in here, it kind of goes at that angle. It doesn't want to go flush. If you actually push this down, flush, this magnet starts to become loose. And this see, I can like flick it with my finger, and it comes right out. It doesn't want to stay in. When you take this magnet out though, these magnets work out pretty good. They're in there nice and tight and everything's working. So that's the thing I was talking about, how you can't have everything going this way and then stuff coming that way. Okay guys, sorry for the out of sync of this video. Right now all this stuff is pretty much almost magnetized. What happened was I didn't realize that when I did film this part, when I shrunk down these keys, I must have, the camera must have died on me and I didn't pay attention and I lost all the footage. But what I did was I sawed off this key to right about there, and I did the same thing with this key here. So once I sawed these down, I filled in these areas with Magnasculpt, and I used baby powder, and then what I did is I pushed this in here and I pushed this in here and I let it cure over the day. So what I did is I got smaller keys, and then what I did is now we'll kind of go to where I started adding the magnets in so you kind of understand what's going on. Sorry about that, but it's just one of these things where I got all these magnets and I'm trying to get everything to work while filming, and then I'm trying to edit later in the week and I'm forgetting what I did and what I didn't do. So it's just bear with me on this one, but we're getting it worked out and things are progressing pretty nicely now. Alright guys, so at this point I dremeled out the new holes on these. I marked up which magnet goes to each side, and just to make sure too everything's going in perfectly fine now, and we don't have to worry about the magnets being so deep to mess with the head. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add these magnets in, and I'm going to try to get them, see, as you can see here, it's really deep in there. I'm going to try to get the magnet as far to the, you know, edge as possible, but I can't go too far because it'll probably push this out, so I got to kind of wiggle it in and kind of use the Magnasculpt. But after some toying around, and once the Magnasculpt starts to, you know, cure up and really bond in there, I could probably get it just right. We want to make sure that when we put it in, it's connecting or at least pulling toward each other, but not having any gap within the arm seam around here. So I'm going to get that going, and then hopefully we can get this finished up most of the day. Okay, so since I had some extra magnet sculpt, I put the magnet in here and I made sure that I marked everything up. So what I did first was I put the head in there with some of the magnet sculpt and I got myself a flat spot. And then what I did is I pushed the magnet in to get where the hole I needed to go. The only problem is like I said, because you got such strong magnets over here, this thing likes to flop around. It works fine as long as the magnet is in one position, but when you try to drop it in on your own, it kind of connects to this one over here. But I think it's going to work out fine now because what I did was I used this tool here and I put the magnet on it and I kind of pushed it in and I kind of had to wiggle it and then I got it into a spot. But what I need to do is afterwards, what I did is I just used my brush and I kind of pulled the magnet sculpt around the magnet a bit. Now, if I try to put this head in there now, it's going to pull out this magnet. So I'm going to give it like a, I don't know, we'll give it like maybe like a half hour or so, maybe a little bit more. We'll see what happens. And then we'll come back and hopefully if I think it's going to be grabbing, then what we'll do is we'll throw baby powder in there. The same with the thing with the arms, and then we'll try to mess with it. So this is one of those items where you got to kind of play with it within the time that the mag scope's going to start curing because, you know, like I said, we got such heavy stuff here. But we'll come back in about another 20 minutes, half hour, see how things are looking. Alright guys, so I wanted to make sure I get these magnets in correctly for these hands. Now these hands are not that heavy, they're fairly light, and it's definitely a magnet in here and a magnet in there is going to hold them up no problem. So what I did is I had some extra magnet sculpt, and what I did is I found out by utilizing this clear resin piece that this key was just about perfect into this key here. So they did a really good job with cutting this and everything. So after I got this magnet in and everything, I wanted to do some testing. We have a little bit of extra magic sculpt over here from testing, but so what I did is this hand is I dremeled out this one, but I used my tile cutting tool. My tile cutting tool has a lot of edges around it, so everything could grab pretty well. Plus, for some odd reason, I made this hole almost perfect. So I put the magnet onto the hand here, and then I will show you. So here's one of the magnets. So I had a magnet sitting at the edge, right? And then what I did was I put magnet sculpt in there and I pushed this in. And when I pulled it out just to see how it worked, the magnet actually stayed in there. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. So then what I did is I flattened it and I pushed it in a little bit further. So now the magnets aren't touching perfectly, but they're just close enough where it's going to hold the hand in, no problem. Now this hand is clear resin, so we want to make sure that we don't make a lot of mess with inside because we want to, you know, keep some of this clear stuff, but you have to keep a magnet in there. You can't, you know, you got to have it so it's attaching. So what I did was I dremeled in here, but what I did is I used a regular drill bit. Now when you use a regular drill bit, it makes it smoother than the regular the Dremel because regular drill bit makes, you know, get a nice clean cut. So once I got the clean cut, I put the magnet in there, and I realized that this magnet needs to be just a little bit lower than the key touching it, so this way this grabs. So, and then what I did is I used Magic Sculpt. Now the reason why I use Magic Sculpt on these keying is because if you drop a couple pieces of glue in there and it dries before you do anything, all of a sudden, you know, maybe the magnet's too high, maybe it's way too low, or maybe you put way too much glue in there and it bleeded out, and even though the magnet is in the correct position, there's so much glue, the key's not going in all the way. So I like to use Magic Sculpt or Aves and just let it sit. It's just my personal preference. If you like using glue and you just want to put a couple drops of glue in, get it done and walk away, that's fine. But for me, I like to use the Magic Sculpt. And the other thing too is it's either you have the piece of metal showing with a lot of the glue in there, which I don't know how it would look, or you just use the white Magic Sculpt and it'll just have a little whiteness in there. But anyway, with this clear hand, I'm going to paint it, you know, the color of the glove, and then I'm going to blend it out to the hands are yellow. So pretty much around here you're not going to see much of it except the flame, so it's not the end of the world for what I did. So that worked out pretty cool. So the hands are pretty good. What I'm going to do is, of course, like always, I'm going to let this sit for like another hour or so, and then I'll come back and testing and everything. But I think we're pretty good with the hands, the arms, the head now. So I just got to go over some other pieces, and then hopefully we can get some bases to me soon so we can start putting the whole body together. Alright, so we're on to the other hand now. What I did is we're doing 2 magnets on this one, only because this gun is a lot bigger. It's not really that heavy, but still. So what I did is we have the hole already in there, and it's deep enough for 2 magnets, and we want to make sure that these 2 magnets get in there pretty deep. I marked them with my black marker on each one just in case, so we know it goes in this direction. I mix up fresh Magic Sculpt because the other Magic Sculpt got a little bit too hard, and this way this will push in easier. So because these are already longer, it works out pretty well. So now, because the gun's kind of flat, this kind of works out pretty well. We can kind of get maybe something like this that's a little bit wider. Just kind of push that sucker in there. Threw a lot of Magic Sculpt in it this time only because it's deep and we need to make sure. Like I said, these cuts were pretty good on this kit, so you didn't really have to worry too much about, you know, the cuts are not even. It seems like owners did a really good job on these. Now I have sometimes we get lucky where when you put two magnets in, they pretty much stay in there pretty well because the Magic Sculpt kind of suction cups them all in there. So we're gonna take a gamble and try the hand and see how it works. Worst case scenario, we clean it up and we do it again. Yeah, looking pretty good. So just to do another test, what we'll do is we'll take the body and then we'll put the hand. Alright, so this was my fear. It seems that this arm is good, but the gun with the key is too wobbly. So that's kind of what I feared. So it looks like we are going to have to redo this. We're going to have to get these magnets out of there, and we're going to have to do the old do it with a pin and a magnet like I do with a lot of my other sculpts. The arm is pretty good. It's going to hold no problem. Like, just get this magnet at it. It's like I really got that arm in there pretty well. But sadly this isn't working to where we want it. So we're going to have to cut this key, and we're going to have to get these magnets out, and then we're going to have to do the whole pinning with the magnet, so this way a rod, you know, a metal rod goes in there and it's lined up perfectly. I didn't want to go that route, but I should have thought about it in the beginning, but I thought maybe this would have been fine, but you know, I don't like the idea that it's not kind of connecting there. As you can kind of see this gap, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make my little key, which you have a metal key stock, square. And then what you do is you make a little piece of a hollow brass rod, cut a little piece off of there, and then you have your magnet. So what we do first is make sure that this is sanded down, just in case, you know, if it's a key stock metal and it's got some grease and oil, you can kind of smooth it down. But we're looking pretty good. So we're going to put it in this way. What you want to make sure too is it's kind of like the tip is smooth, so I kind of sanded this down and made it nice and smooth. Take your Magic Sculpt. And we just throw it in here. Done this in the past in a couple of my other videos on how to make keys and stuff. This is just more sturdy. What I also did is I kind of notched it a little bit too. Just did some little notching when I was sawing it, just to kind of make sure it grabs in there. But doing it this way is going to make sure that it's actually stable and it's where we want it to be. The other way was fine, it's just that it was a little too loose. I didn't like that. So then what we do is you just take this and then you just kind of squeeze it all the way down. Now you get a lot of the Magic Sculpt that comes out of it, but that's fine. And then what you do is take your paintbrush. It doesn't really matter the angle that it's on, it's still going in there. Now if you were going to be doing change of hands with this, then you have to do a couple extra steps. Where you do this first, you make the one hand work, and then you make the next hand work with another setup. That's a little bit more tricky, but since it's only one hand, we don't have to go all that crazy. So it's kind of like a double key here. So you have the main key, right? And then you got the metal key after it. And it's kind of like a stepping key. So what you want to do next is just to make sure everything's lined up. You take the little piece of brass, you take this, and then you put this into the hand. Just to make sure we're lining up. Now, it might not be perfect. because we have to connect these two pieces, and that'll be the next step. At least I'll give you guys an idea of where we're going. So you don't want to try to pull this out because the magnet is grabbing it. So we want to slide the magnet off, and then you can pull this piece off here, and then we can smooth any of this up that we need to. Now this is a much tighter type of key setup, plus it's also magnetized. So this way, once this goes in there, we shouldn't have any kind of movement coming up and down because it's going to be really tight onto this brass rod. This brass rod's not really moving anywhere, it's pretty much there. It's a little tiny bit of a give, but nothing like, you know, like we were seeing before with that huge gap. And so basically we're at that about the same length before. We're about the same length as the key before, but we just have a little bit of a metal piece now that's going to be really really there. It's going to be really good. So we're going to let this cure up overnight. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish up this key part. Well, we got to do two steps. I'm sorry. We got to come back tomorrow and we have to attach these two pieces. I'll show you how I attach these two pieces so this becomes a new piece. And then what we do is once this is cured, we push it in there and everything should work out pretty well. Okay, so we're going to start working on the key a little bit more. So this is pretty much a couple days. I haven't had a chance to work on it, but the inside piece is all cured up. So now we have the steel brass rod in there. What you do is you make yourself a little bit of this hollow brass rod. You have to get the right sizes, of course. So it's pretty much, you know, see how it moves like that. And then what you do is you cut that off and you have the metal showing at the very tip. And then you put your magnet there. So now what we do is if you have some Magic Sculpt Aves, whatever material you use is up to you. Just kind of flatten it out a little bit, you know, nice and thin. And then what we do is we just wrap it around this piece. So this way, once the Magic Sculpt hardens and cures, you know, by the end of the day, tomorrow, whenever, what you get is you get yourself a pretty much a locking mechanism with a magnet. So the metal that's in the arm will now slide with the brass rod, and then that metal is going to hit the magnet. So now we have that. So when this cures by tomorrow, you know, what we do is we grab the other hand and we push this in, and then when you pull it out, this should be locked into the hand. Now, this might be a little too thick right now for that hand, so I might have to do some sand work, but what you can do is just got to be careful though, because you don't want to pull too thin. You can kind of make a point, but what I'll do is I'll probably sand down to make sure this fits into the hand. But just to give you an idea, so by, you know, tomorrow or end of the day, whatever, this is going to be cured pretty hard. This is going to bond together, and then what we have is like a locking mechanism. Okay, I mixed up a little bit more, so we should be pretty good. I might have mixed up a little too much, so we'll kind of play it by ear. You can use glue, you can use epoxy. You know, like mix A and B together, like really epoxy that sets up 5 minutes. The reason why I do Magic Sculpt and A's is because I've done glue plenty of times. I've done epoxy, but the problem is if you put too much in there and then when you pop it out, you realize that you kind of glued up all around in this area here, and it just makes life a living hell. So I'd rather just do Magic Sculpt or A's because it's, you know, if it works out really well and you rig it so it dries, you'll be fine. But if you don't, then of course you got problems. So let's make sure we put this back on correctly. Okay, so maybe we put it on this way. I think it was. Yeah. Okay. So attempt number 2. So sometimes these things take a little. You know, you could try a couple attempts. It's looking pretty flush, and then what you do is pop it out. Okay, this one looks a little bit better. So as you can kind of see how it looks in there, a little bit messy. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw some more Magic Sculpt around the edges. Now, you really don't need to do this right now. You can let it cure and be on the safe side and then fill it in the next day. I'm just going to fill in just a little bit more so it bonds to anything that I might have missed. It doesn't matter if a key in the inside looks disgusting, if it's not lined up, you know, like you can see there, it just looks nasty. It really doesn't matter as long as it's perfectly lining up and everything's working good. So you won't see it. Doesn't really matter. So let's try this one more time. You want to make sure you get it good, because if you don't and you push it in too far, it's not bonding. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take tape. I didn't prime any of this yet because I'm working on the magnets, which is fine. And I'm going to sort of making sure everything's looking good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rig this up so it's upright like this. So I'm going to keep it so this way the magnet and eaves and everything is pushing down on this, so it's nice and even with the hand, which is looking pretty good. So I'm going to see if I have to maybe put 2 boxes near it, a couple books or something. I don't know, I'll figure it out. But we're going to let this cure up pretty much overnight like this, and it should work out pretty good. Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to show you guys how I rigged it up. This is going to leave this like this overnight. It won't be in it. This is in the garage. I got my vise, as you can see right there. And what I did is I put a towel in here so it's not crushing anything. And I just tightened it up to the point where it's snug. It's a little bit loose, but it's not going anywhere. So that's pretty good. So looking at the angles and everything, it's looking pretty good. It should work out pretty well. As you can, yeah, we'll probably leave it like this a little bit more. And then we'll just tighten it. As long as it's just staying there and it's snug. So we're good. So yeah, we'll just leave it like that for the night and should be good by tomorrow. Alright, so it's the next day. I pulled this off of the setup, made sure that the tape didn't ruin anything. And trying to put this in at the... So, alright, there we go. So it pretty much goes in, no problem. It's not loose like it was before, as we can see. And there's not really a huge gap. There's a little bit of a tiny bit of a gap, but once you paint that up, you really won't even notice that much. But at least now it's connecting in there pretty well, so the magnet really holds it. When you first put it in, it feels like it's not grabbing. When you try to pull it out, the magnet's really pulling it, see? But there you go. So we got that done, so on to the next parts.